It began as a subtle unease, a quiet discomfort I couldn't quite pinpoint. There wasn't a single dramatic moment that shook me to my core, no explosive fight or tearful showdown. Instead, it was a gradual awakening, seeping into my ordinary days. It showed up in the way my mom would call me at 3 p.m. on a random Wednesday, asking if I could swing by to lend a hand at the store. Or in the offhand remarks my dad would make, like how it'd be great if I could stick around more often. There was something strange about it, something I couldn't ignore. When they asked for help, it didn't feel like a request. It felt like an expectation, cloaked in a soft, casual tone. At first, I didn't dwell on it too much. I was 25, just starting to make my mark in the tech industry, building apps, experimenting with cutting-edge software, and earning recognition for my work. My dream career was finally within my grasp, the kind of opportunity people spend years chasing. But my parents, they didn't seem to understand it. They never really did. It started small. They didn't outright demand, "Daniel, come run the store." It was more like gentle nudges laced with guilt, as if they were asking for a favor, not my entire future. They'd call about the shop, a family-owned place filled with trinkets, souvenirs, and odds and ends. And I'd find myself roped into helping out for an afternoon, mostly because they were getting older and I was the dependable one. My sister Lily was off doing her own thing, whatever that was, and I was expected to step up. The first time I agreed to help, it felt like no big deal, just a small gesture. I took a few hours off from my tech job, threw on a faded shirt, and headed to the store. Honestly, it was a nice break at first. My work was all screens and code, so being around people, interacting in the real world, felt refreshing. But when I walked into the shop, something felt off. Not wrong, just different. It wasn't just the creaky floors or the cluttered shelves. It was the way my dad looked at me, like he'd been waiting for me to show up for years. "Good to have you here, son," he said, his tone heavy with meaning I didn't quite grasp. I nodded, focusing on straightening displays, trying to ignore the weight of his words. As the day wore on, I started to see how much they expected of me. My dad would toss out questions like, "Can you take care of the orders next week?" Or "You'd be great at handling the stock." I brushed it off with a smile, saying, "Just helping out today," keeping things light. But deep down, I knew they weren't asking for a few hours. They were hinting at something bigger. They wanted me there permanently. And part of me felt like I should be. They were aging, the store was struggling, and who else would keep it going if not me? I was the son, the one meant to carry the family legacy. But every time I agreed to help, my dream job, the one I'd worked so hard for, slipped further away. The guilt started creeping in fast. Every time I tried to leave early, my mom would give me that look. You know it. The one that says everything without words. The one that makes you feel like you're letting everyone down if you don't meet expectations you didn't even know existed. "Why not stay a bit longer, Daniel?" she'd say. "You're so good at this, we really need you." And then there was Lily. My mom would casually mention, "Oh, Lily's off exploring herself again," and it stung every time. I loved my sister, I really did. But she was always the free spirit, the one who could do whatever she wanted without consequences. While I was stuck at the store, Lily was out there living her life, traveling, meeting new people, chasing adventures that looked far more exciting than anything I'd done in years. I was juggling a 40-hour tech job I loved, then spending evenings at the store, managing inventory, dealing with employees, doing whatever it took to keep the place afloat. And Lily, she was posting photos from her travels, sunsets in Thailand, wine tastings in Tuscany. Every time I saw her Instagram, a knot tightened in my chest. How could she live so freely while I was trapped, trying to keep the family business alive? One night after a long day at the store, I couldn't take it anymore. I confronted my mom. "Why is it always me?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "Why don't you ever ask Lily to help?" She paused, her face softening, not with guilt but with exhaustion. "Oh, Daniel," she said, she's the dreamer. She's figuring herself out. You're the practical one. You know how to keep things together. This store, it's not just a business, it's our legacy." That word, legacy, echoed in my mind as I drove home that night. I tried to push it aside, but it felt like a chain wrapping around me. A legacy I hadn't chosen. A duty I wasn't sure I could carry. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd help for a bit and then return to my tech career. But every time I showed up at the store, I stayed longer. My dream job started to feel like a distant memory, something I'd have to abandon to save the store, to save my parents. What stung the most, though, was the realization that Lily didn't have to give up anything. And maybe, just maybe, my parents were okay with that. That thought festered and I couldn't let it go. I wasn't just helping anymore. I was being pulled into something much bigger, and I wasn't sure I had a say in it anymore. So that's how I ended up running the family business piece by piece, trading my dreams for obligation. It wasn't one big choice, just a series of small concessions, each one easier to make than the last. Update that nagging feeling grew stronger over time. I couldn't pinpoint when it started, just a vague sense of wrongness every time I left the store. By then, I'd been working there for years, long enough for it to feel permanent, for the walls to feel like they were closing in. At first, I thought it was just burnout, balancing a full-time job, running the shop, and trying to hold onto a sliver of my old life was exhausting. But the unease kept creeping in, showing up in small moments. My mom would smile, carefree, and say things like, "We're so lucky to have you, Daniel. You're the only one who keeps things running." And there it was, a bitter pang in my gut. She wasn't lying. I was the only one keeping the business afloat. Lily, who'd been finding herself since we were teenagers, was off living her dream life, traveling, attending galleries, basking in the glow of her social media fame. Meanwhile, I was stuck in an endless loop of long shifts, dealing with customers who didn't care about the store or the effort I put in. I can't say when the resentment took root, but it grew quietly. I wasn't just helping anymore, I was running the show. And Lily, she had the audacity to post about discovering her purpose while I was drowning in paperwork. Her Instagram was a constant jab, fancy dinners, rooftop bars, exotic vacations. She'd even shared a photo from a gallery opening in London, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine while I was buried in spreadsheets. "Come on, Daniel, you need to take care of yourself," Lily told me once, oblivious to how much it irritated me. She said it with that airy smile, a mix of innocence and detachment, like she couldn't fathom the weight I was carrying. She didn't get it, and I never brought it up to my parents. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, like I was whining. They needed me, and I was trying to do right by them. But every time they asked me to stay late or take on another task, it felt like they were pulling me further from the life I'd worked so hard to create. That was the problem. I couldn't keep pretending it was okay. My tech job, the one I loved, was fading into the past. My old coworkers were moving up, working on exciting projects, some even launching apps we dreamed up together in college. I felt stuck watching everyone else surge forward while I was trapped in place. Even my boss, Mark, started to notice. He'd been supportive, but I could see the shift in his eyes when he'd say, "You're spreading yourself thin, huh?" I'd force a smile, acting like everything was fine, but I knew he was disappointed. I wasn't the same person anymore, the guy who was passionate about tech, always chasing the next big idea. I was the guy running a failing store, managing a sinking ship. One night, I overheard my dad on the phone with a vendor, negotiating to keep the store's rent paid for a few more months. His words were painfully familiar, echoes of the same excuses he'd given the bank years ago. "We just need a little more time," he said, his voice almost desperate. "Daniel's been a huge help, but we can't do this without you." Those words hit me like a punch. There was no we in that equation. It was just me holding everything together. The store wasn't a family effort anymore. It was my burden. And then there was Lily breezing in for visits, looking effortlessly stylish, sharing stories of her latest trip to the beach or how she'd spent a week connecting with her creative side in some far-off place. It felt like a personal insult every time. I'd be at the store, exhausted, dealing with rude customers while she was racking up likes and admiration. It wasn't just envy, it was anger. She got to live without a care, while I was left picking up the pieces. One evening, after a brutal day, I stared at a pile of unpaid bills. The small wins of keeping the store running didn't feel worth it anymore. It was like bailing water out of a sinking boat, knowing it would eventually go under. Then Lily came home for the holidays, as she always did. I didn't bother asking what she'd been up to. Her answers were always the same. "Oh, just living, taking it one day at a time." But at dinner that night, something broke. My dad mentioned how we all need to pitch in more, and Lily just nodded like she was being asked to fold napkins. "Maybe next time," she said with a smile as if it was nothing. I lost it. "What is wrong with you?" I snapped, unable to hold back. "You're out there living your perfect life and I'm stuck here keeping everything together." The room fell silent. My mom looked uneasy, but Lily just stared at me, stunned. "Daniel, I don't know what you expect from me," she said. "I'm not you. I don't want your life and you don't want mine." Her words cut through the haze of my anger, not an apology, but honest. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized the resentment wasn't just about the store. It was about me. How I'd let myself get consumed by the family's expectations, how I'd lost sight of what I was holding on to. Something had to change. I just didn't know what. Final update: years had passed, years of pouring everything into a business that never gave back. Years of feeling like I was fading, worn down by the endless grind of keeping the family shop alive. All the while, Lily was out there, thriving, while I wondered where I'd gone wrong. There were moments when I hoped my parents would see it, see what I was giving up. That's the thing about family. You love them, you want to support them, but there's always that lingering question. Do they value me, or am I just the fallback? It wasn't until a phone call that everything came to a head. I was at my new apartment downtown, a small refuge from the store and the weight of it all. I was sorting through emails when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I figured it was another check-in, one of her usual "how's it going" calls. I answered, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. "Daniel, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight. "It's serious." My heart sank. I thought maybe they were sick or the store had hit another rough patch. "What's wrong?" I asked, bracing myself. "We're in trouble," she said, her voice trembling. "The store's not doing well. We're behind on rent, the bills are piling up, and we don't have enough savings. We need help, Daniel." I could hear my dad in the background murmuring, "Tell him what we need." Their panic was palpable, and it wasn't new. I'd heard it before. But this time, it hit differently. My first instinct was to step in, like always. The old me, the one who'd sacrificed everything for years, felt the familiar tug. But something inside me broke. It wasn't just the money they needed, it was me again, being their lifeline. And then I thought of Lily. She was out there, living her glamorous life, untouched by this mess. They never asked her for anything, never expected her to step up. I hadn't planned what came next, but something shifted. I was done being the responsible one, done carrying the weight while Lily floated through life. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice steady but low, "you should talk to Lily. She's doing fine, isn't she?" There was a pause. My mom's voice wavered. "Daniel, don't do this. She's busy with her own life." "Busy?" I cut in. "I see her Instagram, her trips, her parties, her perfect life. She's not busy, she's thriving, and you never ask her for help. It's always me." I could hear my mom searching for words, but I wasn't finished. "I've worked so hard for years, given up everything, my dreams, my time, my sanity. And for what? To be the one you call when things fall apart." "I'm done." I hung up before she could respond. My heart was racing, my hands shaking, but I didn't feel guilty. For the first time, I felt in control. I wasn't their crutch anymore. It was freeing, but also unsettling. I took a deep breath and opened Instagram, scrolling through Lily's feed. Polished photos, luxurious trips, endless nights out. It was everything I'd missed out on while I was trapped in the store. To make my point, I screenshotted one of her posts, a picture of her lounging by a pool in Greece, captioned with grateful #living my truth. I sent it to my parents with a short message. "If you need money, ask Lily. She seems to be doing great." Then I closed the app and leaned back, a strange calm settling over me. I didn't know what would happen next, and I didn't care. I was done letting them pull me back in. The next few hours dragged on. No calls, no apologies, no explanations, just silence. It was like they were waiting for me to cave, to reach out and fix it. But I didn't. I left their texts unanswered. Lily kept posting, oblivious to the shift, never checking in to see if I was okay. But that was fine. I was done being the one who held it all together. For once, I was the one who let go, and it felt like freedom. Maybe I'd never get the validation I'd hoped for from my family. But for the first time in years, I knew my own value. I was putting myself first, and that was enough. What comes next, I don't know. But I don't need their approval to move forward anymore.